Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Advocate webinar on where we'll be talking about walking the talk with advocacy and fundraising in honor of our Walk to Cure Arthritis season. This year, we have walks all across the country as a way for people who care about arthritis and want to find a cure for arthritis to come together in a common mission to share their stories and really take action on behalf of our 54 million Americans with arthritis. We're so excited to talk to you today about how we can marry up ways to advocate with ways to walk and to fundraise. I am your host today. My name is Julie Eller, and I manage our grassroots advocacy programs at the Arthritis Foundation. And I'm so excited to be joined by a very special guest, Helen King, who I'll give you some more background on later. But for now, all you need to know is that Helen is an amazing subject matter expert on both advocacy and fundraising. And we're just thrilled to have her on our call today. I can't think of a better guest to help talk to you about the amazing ways that we can build connections between our advocacy program and our fundraising one. Before we dive into all of our content, I just want to give you all a reminder to get to know our team. It's important that our state directors get to hear from our amazing advocates who join calls like these so we can connect you with some more local opportunities to take action and get engaged and get involved. So if you haven't connected already, take a look at the email addresses that are listed on our map legend here. And based on the color of the map, connect with the state director that's most appropriate for your region. We've got some really amazing folks all across the country who are here to help guide you in sharing your story, engaging in local advocacy, and helping to break down barriers to care for people in your state. On today's call, we're going to cover three different kind of components. We want to make sure that we talk with Helen about walking the talk in general. We want to talk about our marriage of advocacy and fundraising, ways that the two are intrinsically linked, even if we don't know about it yet, and ways that we can take action. Throughout the call, we're hoping to better equip you with the tools that you need to strengthen your ask, whether they're an ask of a financial donor or an ask of a legislator. So many of those skills are exactly the same. So let's get started. I want to introduce you to Helen King. We wanted to host this advocate webinar on translating your advocacy skills into fundraising lens and give you some strong examples of advocates who are kicking butt at just that already. And Helen King is one such advocate. Like many affected by arthritis, Helen found herself having to say no to a lot of the things that she once enjoyed, like attending concerts and ball games and family gatherings. Diagnosed with aggressive rheumatoid arthritis 4 years ago, she learned how to manage her physical and emotional pain through medications by immersing herself in supporting others who are struggling with this disease. As a mother of two grown sons with a full-time career, Helen volunteers for our cause in several ways. She achieved the Platinum Ambassador Award this year for the Arthritis Foundation, advocating for more accessible and affordable care. She also serves as one of the Foundation's local leadership board leaders, where she is a network leader for the Live Yes Connect support group in her hometown of King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. In 2017, Helen's Walk to Cure Arthritis team, Kings RA Queens, raised over $12,000. Last year, they brought in more than $30,000, ranking as the #7 fundraising team nationwide. This year, she is not only the event chair for the Philadelphia Walk, but also our 2019 National Adult Honoree for the Walk to Cure Arthritis. Helen is wearing very, very many hats for our foundation in her Live Yes capacities, in her advocacy capacities, in her fundraising capacities, and we are so excited to have her as a member of our community, but also especially as a leader who can share her story with all of you. So Helen, welcome to our call, and thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Julie. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for that amazing introduction. I'm really honored and excited, to be able to be on the call today, not only to share my story, but to talk with everybody about advocacy, fundraising, and of course, my biggest passion, which is the walk. My journey actually began about 5 years ago, but I didn't really become involved with the Arthritis Foundation until 2 years into my diagnosis, when I was able to sort of wrap my brain around what was going on, and I went looking for help and to understand my diagnosis, and I wanted to find something in person, a support group. And realizing there was nothing in my area, that's how I got connected and decided to become a trained Live Yes Connect group facilitator, which is what it's called now. That's not what it was called then. But then when I was in my training to become a leader, I realized I wanted to do more, and that's when I discovered the Walk to Cure Arthritis. So the walk was really my introduction into the Arthritis Foundation community, and it is a lot of people's introduction into the Arthritis Foundation. So I'm passionate about this event because it was on that day, my first walk event, that I realized I wasn't alone in my fight, that there was a community of support. So for those that don't know, the Walk to Cure is the largest arthritis gathering in the world, celebrating our warriors while, raising funds for research, resources, including advocacy, and of course a cure. And if you have never been to a walk, it's much more than that. The walk has become the Arthritis Foundation's flagship event for those of us living with arthritis, but also for those that love and support people who are living with arthritis. And it's a place where people can come together to connect and get educated and feel empowered. So the walk is a community event. It's a great way to introduce people to the Arthritis Foundation and everything the foundation has to offer. And not only for people who are newly diagnosed, because I'm amazed at how many people I run across that have arthritis and who have never even heard about the Walk to Cure. So it's a great opportunity to raise awareness and promote the event both inside our community, but also outside our community, to start to raise awareness to people who don't necessarily have arthritis but want to support us, because everybody knows someone affected by this disease. So the math that cures arthritis. We know how powerful advocacy is. We also know how powerful fundraising is. So what if we could marry these two amazing tools in the advancement of arthritis? Imagine what we as 150,000 advocates can do if we use our skills for both advocating and fundraising. So today, that's sort of what we want to talk about. We want to show you how the skills that you already have as amazing advocates translate into becoming amazing fundraisers.
And we also want to just talk about why it's so important for fundraising and advocacy. And we talk all the time about how when we're sharing our stories with decision makers, we're putting the people behind the policies that they're choosing to enact and legislate and put together. But when we're sharing our stories with our communities and with our friends, we're helping to raise awareness for the important and groundbreaking policies that we're changing, the important faces and people behind the decisions that our legislators are making. And so when you tell your patient story, you are creating a platform for yourself. And whether you're talking with a decision maker in Congress or a decision maker who holds the checkbook for a donation, you have a power to really move the needle to raise awareness for America's #1 cause of disability. So we're hoping that in talking about advocacy and talking about fundraising, we realize that it's not just the appropriations ask that we're going to make of Congress, but also that fundraising ask or that in-kind donation ask that we're going to make of our local business partners that will help us to raise awareness for arthritis and really make life-changing advancements for people who are experiencing this disease.
So advocacy is one thing, but so then you say, well, how do I fundraise? So when you ask Congress to support one of our legislative or appropriation asks, you're using the same skill set that you're using for fundraising. So if you've ever sent out an action alert to Congress to support appropriations for funding, you can use that same skill set in asking a local shop to support you or family or friends to support you. So just this month, I had a large fundraising event. This is our third year. We hold a big designer bag bingo event for about 200 or so people. This year was a huge success, and our event brought in a little over $11,000 for Kings RA Queens. So even though this was my third year holding the fundraising event, it was the first time I took the opportunity with this very captive audience to talk about advocacy. So I wanted to show them that I walk the talk. Not only do I share my story to, raise and ask for money and donations, but that I also go in front of Congress to help affect change. So I talked about advocacy. I talked about how they could help. I talked about step therapy, because right now that's one of our call to actions that's so important to us. And then that's what I gave them as a call to action that night, and asked every single person there to sign the petition on step therapy. So again, both advocacy and fundraising are share your story, talk about the need, why it's important, what you're doing about it, and then you have to make the ask. So I was recently at a Walk to Cure Arthritis Summit, and they threw up this slide for all of us to see. And it really drives home one of the points that we want to talk about today, which is the bottom line on either side, advocacy or fundraising, is you have to ask. 50% of people of these who responded to this survey as to why there were $0 is because they were never asked to fundraise. So you'll hear me say all throughout today, or when anybody asks me my number one tip for fundraising, it's really that simple, is you have to ask. So in asking, how does that, what are the tips to successfully ask? And what does that look like either on advocacy side or fundraising side? Well, you have to be honest. You have to share your story, and you have to put a face with the mission and talk about how you are impacted. You have to be enthusiastic. People want to get involved with people who, certainly have a drive and a will. And people give to people, not to causes. So people want to support you supporting the Arthritis Foundation. And there it is again. Don't be afraid to ask. That's the biggest barrier. I mean, you just have to ask. It's that simple. Show that you care. So talk about advocacy and fundraising. I think sometimes people get fundraising fatigue. So if they see that it goes beyond fundraising for you and how involved on the advocacy side you are, I think that sort of drives home the importance of the issue for you. And then last but certainly not least is you have to say thank you, whether it's to the elected officials we're talking to or to donors. I will have over 100 supporters to me personally for the Walk to Cure, and every single one of them will get a handwritten thank you from me, not an email, a handwritten thank you, because I just think it goes a long way, and they'll know, not only will I say thank you, but I'll let them know how I did against my goal. So I think that's very important to remember.
And I think the best thing is that all of these tips are exactly the same talking points that we use when we're training up new advocates to share their story with Congress, new advocates to share their story with their state legislators. Each of these tips, being honest and enthusiastic and not afraid to make your ask, these are all the same skills that we would use in making an ask of Congress. So we want to talk about how we can use these elements, are being honest and enthusiastic and saying thank you in both advocacy and fundraising. And Helen kind of touched on this before. but there are really 4 key elements that we want to make sure that we do. And the first is that we want to share the need. So whether you're talking to a legislator or a potential donor, it's helpful to start with something that's kind of broad so that they understand the real issue. So maybe that's a statistic about 1 in 4 Americans having arthritis, or maybe it's a state-based statistic that says how many people experience arthritis in your home state. But it's something that can help really build this picture for the person that you're describing this problem to, because so many people might not realize the real impact of arthritis. And then after you've shared the need, you want to explain why it's important to you. It's really important that we're authentic and honest, and this is an opportunity where you can share your 1-sentence story about why you advocate or why you fundraise. For me, I fundraise and I advocate because I have had arthritis since I was a kid, and I know that having access to the right medication at the right time can be the difference between being in a wheelchair or being able to tap dance in your high school musical, which was what my experience was. And I know that bringing that person behind the policy, behind the ask, behind the fundraising ask, can really help to create that sense of empathy in one of your asks. But the thing that really goes a long way is to show what you're already doing about it. So if you're trying to break into fundraising and you haven't done it before, but you have sent 10 action alerts this year, or even just 1 action alert this year to a member of Congress, you can share that with the people that you're talking to who are potentially going to support your event. Maybe you say, I am really passionate about finding a cure for arthritis. It's why I asked Congress to appropriate funds to research arthritis at the CDC. And that's why I'm asking you to do the same thing by donating to my walk team or something similar in that vein. And the final piece is to really make a clear ask. It's one thing to talk about why arthritis is important and why it's important to you, but the most important element to both advocacy and to fundraising, which sometimes we forget, is that we're not just sharing our story to share our story, but we're sharing our story to also make the ask. And whether the ask is, so I hope that y'all support a proclamation for Arthritis Awareness Month, or I hope that you'll donate a carafe of coffee to my Walk to Cure Arthritis event, we want to make sure that that ask is there, because so often we'll share our story just to have that conversation, and the person on the receiving end might have said, oh, I want to help, I want to do something with you. But like that $0 fundraising stat we said before, they might not know how to help unless they're asked. So let's make that ask. Helen, do you want to give an example of some of the ways that you would do some of these steps?
I do. Julie just went through sort of how you could do a one-on-one personal ask. But I want to give you an example on a sort of a bigger scale. I've had an opportunity over the last few months to speak to groups of people. So, I'll get introduced similar to what Julie did on the phone, and I get up, and before I say anything, so if I'm in a group of, 100 or 200 or 300 people, I will say to everyone, if you're comfortable and you have arthritis, could you raise your hand or could you stand up? And, statistically, like we know, 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 people will raise their hand. Then I go on to explain to them. So I'm not just talking about osteoarthritis. I'm talking about rheumatoid arthritis, any of the rheumatic diseases, gout, psoriatic. And, it's amazing how all the hands start to go up. So I ask them to keep their hand up, and then I say, so how about raise your hand now if you know somebody who's affected by one of these forms of arthritis? And at that point, 95% of everybody's hand in the room has gone up. And so I asked them to take a look around the room, and what a visual impact that it is. And this is why I'm here to talk to them today, is because, and then I give the statistics, 1 in 4, 1 in 3 are under the age of 65. And I go on, and then I say to them, for those of you who didn't raise your hand, my name's Helen King, and I have rheumatoid arthritis, so now you do know someone. And this is why it's important to me. And here's what I'm doing in the community, and here's why I'm here to talk to you today. And then I make my ask, whether it's I'm raffling something off to raise money, or I'm asking them to sign a petition of some sort, or I'm asking them to become advocates, or maybe all three. But that's how I sort of do it on a larger scale, but it works no matter if you're talking to one person or you're talking to 300 people. We all know somebody who has it, and it's important to all of us.
I think that's one of my favorite examples of making something real for people when it comes to arthritis, is doing that exercise and having people stand up, because it's so tangible and in the moment. Helen, I love that example, and I think if more of us thought in that way and could share our stories in that way with these platforms we have as advocates, so many people in our communities would really see how many people are impacted.
Yeah, it's amazing how when, 195 of 200 people are standing in the room and everybody's looking around and their mouths are sort of hanging open, and people just don't realize how it's, such a part of everybody's lives.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we really want to elevate when it comes to advocating through Walk to Cure Arthritis or at Walk to Cure Arthritis. So this year, as we always do, we try to bake in opportunities to advocate right there at the event. So whether you're able to attend the event in person or be a supporter from afar, we want to make sure that advocacy is a part of how we walk this year. So we mentioned before that step therapy reform is one of our primary asks this year, and it's the one that we're focusing on at Walk, not just because taking steps is kind of punny with the Walk to Cure Arthritis, but because we have this really great legislative vehicle to reform step therapy protocols and requirements nationwide. So if you haven't been on one of our webinars recently, we had this federal step therapy reform introduced this Congress as the Safe Step Act, H.R. 2279, and we've had an action alert go live that you've been able to take action on remotely in the past couple of months. But at the Walk, we're going to have an advocacy table as a part of our mission booth, where you can sign a petition to Congress to encourage your member of Congress to support this bill by signing up as a co-sponsor. And we also have this action alert that you can take part in or share with your community. And there are lots of ways that we can use these opportunities to really expand our advocacy through Walk. And they are many. We want to really encourage you to think outside the box in how you connect people with an advocacy opportunity or a fundraising opportunity when you're making an ask of your community. So one of the things that we want to encourage you to do is to, one, showcase advocacy as one of the reasons that someone could or should donate to you and your team. You take action, you're walking the talk, so let's make sure that you're putting that as a part of the ask that you might make. You can also use advocacy as a way to thank some of your donors. So maybe it's sharing the action alert that we just had up with the people who have already donated to your team to say, hey, thank you so much for donating. If you want to take it to the next level, here's a great way to do that. Share your story with Congress today, and we can help break down even more barriers to care together. We also want to encourage you to visit your booth at your event and have your team that you attend the walk with to all sign our petition supporting step therapy reform. And we'll be sending those petitions on to members of Congress after we have them signed at each of these local events. You can also volunteer to staff the advocacy table at your Walk to Cure Arthritis event. Just contact me after this and I'll help connect you with the appropriate resources. And you can also use advocacy as a way to help engage those people who might not be able to donate to your team but do want to help in any way they can. So one of the things you can do is, for those who don't have the means to donate to your team directly, you can ask them to donate their time and donate 5 minutes to taking action by our side and sending an action alert over to their member of Congress in support of these legislative asks. And I think the most important thing, and Helen has talked so much about this and has done such a good job at building this narrative, but the most important thing is that we think about all of the ways that we can marry up our asks of our community, because so often people want to see that we're walking the walk or we're walking the talk, and this showcasing your advocacy, showcasing your passion for what you do as an advocate can be a really great way to show everybody why it's important to fundraise and donate to your team and walk with you. So to close us out, we've got a few minutes left of our call today, and we wanted to open it up for any questions that you might have of Helen, of our team, so that we could help support you in your mission to cure arthritis through walk and through advocacy. So I have one question come in so far, and it's for Helen, of course, but what has been your favorite way to advocate and fundraise together? So I guess what was one way that you really enjoyed doing both advocacy and fundraising in one event or in multiple events?
Well, I think for me is the walk the talk is I feel like I advocate and fundraise everywhere I go. I mean, I can be in Target and I'm advocating and fundraising. It's just become such a part of my DNA in raising awareness. My local staff makes fun of me because everywhere I am, I have a Walk to Cure Arthritis button on. Everywhere. It's on a scarf, it's on a shirt, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's in every picture they see of me, but it's a conversation starter. So it's either through, again, what Julie had said about sometimes people can't make the financial commitment necessarily to help in the fundraising. So I talk to them about getting involved in advocacy and how easy that is. So I don't need an event for it to take place. It just is part of my life. It's just part of my DNA. But I guess if it was at an event, it's either at Walk or it's at maybe the big team events that I have during Walk season, where I have the opportunity to talk about both and why both are so important.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. I love that line that just being this advocate, being this fundraiser has become a part of your DNA. That's perfect. Another question that we have here is about your designer bag bingo. Can you tell us a little bit about how that event runs and how you start to plan it?
Sure. Well, let me first start by saying I do event planning for a living. So this is not necessarily one out of the gate you want to try to accomplish, because it's a lot of detail if you want to run it well. But I'd be more than happy to share any details on anybody, because I think it is a great way to raise money. So in a nutshell, you bingo for designer handbags, those of which I ask people to either donate or I go places to get them donated. So we run a night where it's a 10-bag bingo night. My family gets involved. My son's the bingo caller. My team helps out. We have a auction that night of things that get donated, whether it's sporting event tickets or, body baskets, and we sell extra bingo cards and daubers, and we run a 50-50. And so, we charge $30 a head, and it's a BYO everything. Get event insurance, and it's pretty successful. I mean, we've grown it a little bit every year. This year is the first year I asked for sponsorships, and so we got a little over $1,500 in just straight up sponsorships through advertising and things like that. But it's a great way. It's a lot of work, but it's a great way to raise money.
I think that's amazing. And I love thinking about how this year's event not only raised over $11,000, but also gave you an opportunity to ask people to take action and garnered something like 50 signatures on your petition to go to your member of Congress.
Yes.
So it's such a great space to really bring your community together and give them that opportunity. One other question is, because that's an advanced example, can you give us an example of maybe a starter activity that would be helpful for some of our advocates in getting engaged in fundraising? What can they plan themselves or attend?
Yes. So first of all, the easiest way to start into fundraising is just asking, tell your story, and ask friends and family and coworkers. But if you want to get into smaller events where you can invite people to that they feel like they're a part of something, there's a lot of things that you can do. So I know everybody knows about the restaurant night, or well, maybe not everybody knows, but a lot of restaurants in your community. I think the first year we did a Chick-fil-A night, where if you go into a certain Chick-fil-A and you walk in with my flyer, 20% of everything is donated to the walk team. And I think that year we made like $700 or $800. So imagine how much Chick-fil-A was sold for that. But if you can drive people to the restaurant, you can do. There are places like the painting, the wine and painting places, Painting Muse or things like that. They will give back. Again, you organize a night, you drive people to the business, and they give you a percentage of the business. So those are the ones that are quickly out of the gate, I think, that are easy to put your big toe into fundraising. If you're on social media, that's a great way to drive to attendees to any event. Make a Facebook event out of whatever you're doing. Share it. Have your arthritis staff, have your local arthritis staff share it through maybe the walk or through the foundation Facebook page. I'm certainly open to talking about specific fundraising ideas that anybody might have. A lot of times if you're not on the Live Yes Connect online community, jump on there. I help people with fundraising ideas through that. I helped a young man in California who was trying to make his JBR goals last year. So I'll help anybody on whatever you guys might need.
Oh, Helen, thank you so much for being not only a speaker and a leader, but also a mentor to help people get into that fundraising success that they are looking for. And with that, I just want to thank everybody for joining our call today. We've gone through our questions. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to either email me or hop on the online community and ask Helen directly, and we'll be sure to help connect you with the resources that you need for advocacy success. We're really at our time here now, so I just want to end with one kind of housekeeping note to look out for our next webinars on June 19th and July 10th. You can see all the information and registration information right on the arthritis.org/advocate/advocate101, so your sign up advocacy page to get all of that feedback and all of that information. And just to close us out, I want to say again, Helen, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a really just invaluable experience for everybody, and we really appreciate all of your insight in raising up these fundraising and advocacy skills in all of our advocates. So thank you so much for everyone for joining us today. And with that, we'll sign off. Have a great day.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you.